Thank you for watching the Kegel maintenance videos. Today, we will be removing the buffer brush assembly from your flex machine to be able to change your buffer brush. We've already taken the liberty of removing the top covers from the machine for easy access. You will need to do the same. Once those covers are removed, the first thing that we want to take off is your drip pads. I've already loosened the hardware and will now remove the final screws. Once removed, we can just set these aside. Make sure to repeat this process on the opposite side. Once both drip pads have been removed from the machine and set aside, we can now go into the main menu, more menus, test input output, brush lift, and put our brush in the up position. Once this has been completed, we can turn off the power to the machine. Now with the power off to your machine, we need to remove a couple more things. I've already taken the liberty of removing a few pieces of hardware and loosening others to save time for the video. We'll need to remove the top cover from the PC plate by removing one screw here, here, and the third here. Once the cover is removed, we'll want to remove the two outside screws from the plate, right and left, and loosen the center. We have now placed the machine in the transport position. Using a 9/16 wrench, loosen the hardware for the buffer idler pulley. Being very careful, to support the plate, we want to remove the center screw that we loosened previously. Very carefully, allow the center plate to slowly unfold. And we can now access the buffer motor and the buffer belt to be able to remove it. Pushing the belt to the side, we can rotate the buffer and take the belt off the drive pulley. Using a cut-off Allen key, we can now remove the shoulder bolt from the top of the assembly and repeat the process on the opposite side. Once both are removed, we will then remove the shoulder bolt from the outside of the machine and repeat the process on the opposite side. Once complete, we can then remove the assembly from the lane machine. With the assembly now removed from the machine, we want to remove the buffer brush from the assembly itself. To do this, we will remove the hardware that connects the assembly to the bearing housing. This will actually be removed on both sides. With the buffer brush now removed, we need to remove the bearing housing and the pulley. To remove the bearing housing, you will loosen the two set screws holding the bearing in place and remove. Next, the set screw inside the drive pulley will need to be loosened so you can pull the drive pulley apart. You will also do the same on the opposite side, noting that the two pulleys are different. With your new buffer brush out of the box, we want to reinstall the hardware that we removed previously. I've taken the time to place some 10W30 oil on the shaft for the buffer to make installing the parts easier. First, we'll put in the key, and then the drive pulley, followed by the bearing. You will now want to tighten the set screw in the drive pulley and keep the two set screws in the bearing housing loose to make the adjustment of the brush when it's in the machine easier. With all of your hardware installed, we'll now start to put the belt on for the drive side for the transfer roller. First, we'll slide the belt on the buffer side. insert the transfer roller, and then insert the transfer brush assembly. Once complete, we can now take the long bolt that was previously removed and insert the idler for the belt. We have placed a small amount of grease on the shoulder bolt for the roller on our belt idler and are now ready to install. As we put the bolt through, we want to make sure that the cutout for the bearing is here, and we'll put on one lock washer, then the idler, followed by the lock washer, and finally the nut. Once complete, we'll want to put the next screw in on the bottom of the assembly. We are now ready to reinstall the new buffer belt. Simply slide the belt around the drive pulley and then around the transfer roller. Once in place, we can reinsert the transfer roller into the bearing and install the hardware that was previously removed. We have placed a small amount of grease on the shaft for the roller on our belt idler and are now ready to install. When installing the idler, always make sure that you have the belt underneath during the reinstallation process. With your hardware finally installed, we are now ready to reinsert in the lane machine. Once your buffer assembly has been reinstalled in the lane machine and the mounting hardware has been tightened, you can slide the buffer brush right or left slightly to ensure both pulleys are aligned for proper belt tracking. Once complete, you can tighten the set screws in the bearing housing that were left loose previously. The final checks we want to perform are on the idlers. We'll first do the idler on the buffer drive side. When installed properly, we should just have tension on the belt and be able to turn the idler semi-freely. If we need to adjust, using a 1/2-inch wrench on the nut and a 7/16 on the collar, we can loosen the nut and gently turn the collar, and being an eccentric, it will change the position of the idler on the belt. The last idler we need to check is on the 10-pin side of the machine. This is the idler that sits on the belt which drives the transfer roller. In order to adjust the idler, you would just loosen with a 1/2-inch wrench the idler assembly and then move it in or out. We're looking for a fair amount of tension on the belt itself. Once we have achieved the proper tension, just tighten the idler back up. Once you've finished adjusting your idlers, we want to go into the main menu on the lane machine, more menus, test input output, and then we want to first test the brush lift, making sure that everything moves freely. With the brush in the down position, we finally want to test the buffer motor itself. Being sure that everything spins free, and then we can finally check our adjustment for our crush on our transfer brush and our transfer roller. When checking the crush, please refer to your operator's manual.